So like in your journey you talk about like over this 4-year period, especially really diving into like philosophy of religion after seeing like William Lane Craig dismantle Christopher Hitchens, like what kind of arguments that were compelling to you that kind of like led you towards theism?
Okay, so while there are many different kinds of reasons to believe in God, different classes of reasons, if we're talking philosophy,
Mhm.
I think the argument from contingency, that there is a grounding for all possible contingent reality. So there are certain facts that may or may not have been. Look out your window, you see a tree, right? That tree does exist, but easily could have not existed.
Mhm.
So there's this whole class of facts, propositions, you could say, and they may be true. They are true in the actual world, so to say, but they may have been false, right?
Mhm.
So what explains actually the fact that facts obtain that could have not obtained? So this grounding for all possible contingent reality, I think, is something that is very, very convincing. Because this all is based on the principle of sufficient reason, the idea that there are, at least for all contingent facts, reasons for why they obtain, and this leads to something that necessarily exists, right? Some being that could not have not existed, right?
Mhm.
There's some kind of fundamental ontological grounding. And just on the face of it, this already sounds a lot like theism, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's one thing. The other thing is that I believe the concept of God is coherent, right?
Mhm.
In and of itself, is that's a modest claim. It just means the concept is coherent. But if you follow something like a modal argument from contingency, that would entail that God actually exists. This is something that to just a normal person would seem a little bit crazy, right? You
Mhm.
just have a concept of a being, and that concept, as such as it is, implies its existence, but that's just the premise of the modal argument from contingency as Plantinga formulated it. If a necessary being is even possible, then it exists, right?
Mhm.
These are, if I would actually boil it down, these are two reasons why I would think God exists. There are other arguments, but normally it gets very, very complicated, I might say. So it's not like you have this argument and that presents the absolute reason that nobody can deny. So I believe a rational, fully informed, and honest person can surely deny the existence of God without being dishonest or just flat out irrational.
Mhm. Okay, so I do want to say as we keep on going, at the end we will have some time for questions. I saw a bunch of questions come in. We will get to questions here at the end for our man Pascal, who runs the Elephant Philosophy YouTube channel. But I'm curious. You talked about having like philosophical reasons, but it seems like there's also this other category you were going to potentially bring up is like reasons that kind of led you towards like a belief in theism. Am I right there? Was there something else beyond like the philosophical?
Yes, I believe there are other quite existential reasons to believe in God, right? I mean, on the face of it, all these reasons have been analyzed by philosophy as well, but they're not strictly, in the strictest sense at least, they're not philosophical reasons. There is a certain longing or maybe a just fundamental urge in people to believe in kind of uh, still there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And once you tear down certain barriers, I think there is a certain longing for God. I wouldn't deny that, but that is not in itself a philosophical reason. You can analyze this kind of longing, this urge for transcendent in philosophical terms, but it is, in the strictest sense, not a philosophical reason to believe in God. And many people believe out of that reason, and that's not irrational. That's just nothing that it doesn't come from some propositional background, right?
Hmm.